Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome from the heart of Dripping Springs. We are your hosts, Michelle Lewis and Steve Mallet.
Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
Hey, Steve, I just threw a wrench in your day-to-day telling you that there's aliens.
You said aliens, but then you said zombies.
No, you said zombies.
Well, if there are people that live in your neighborhood that are walking down the middle of the street just like in a daze, those are zombies. Unless they became, what, impregnated by aliens?
Politicians.
Yeah. I see a lot of people on social media every day that look like zombies.
True. Sometimes I look like a zombie coming in here. But
yeah, well, I'm not going to argue with that. Hey, the show today brought to you by Montana Elliott Studio. Stop.
What was that? I'm not going to argue with that. Okay, you just let that one slip by. Thanks, Montana.
Yeah.
You saved it.
Mark Rutledge at Capital Farm Credit and Pig Pen Barbecue, and I'm already hungry and ready for lunch after this.
Today is Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Best tacos in town.
They are, and but they've actually now have done Taco Tuesday, and I bullied Bill.
Did they really?
Yeah, so today officially is Taco Tuesday, and they are now going to start carrying caldo on Friday, which I'm so excited about, because nobody in this town serves a great cup of or bowl of soup, and I have all my eggs in one basket.
Are you going to get was it banana cream pudding today? Is that what it is?
Banana cream pudding.
I don't know. You were hitting Bill up the other day. He didn't give you your free banana something.
Banana pudding.
Whatever.
It's not a banana cream pudding.
I have no idea. I don't eat that crap. No junk January. Here,
no judging January?
No judging, no junk January. Actually, I fell off the wagon this weekend, so I feel so terrible. We ran 22 miles on Saturday, and I thought, yeah, sure you did. You didn't even drive 22 miles on Saturday. But I was sitting at home and I was tired, and I'm like, I deserve some M&Ms, and I went looking for them and I couldn't find them, so I had some cookies and some Good and Plenty's and a Ghirardelli chocolate and fell off the wagon. Oh,
you
man,
wasted your sweet
Good
on
and Plenty's are so good.
Are you like 90 years old or something?
Stop.
Those are gross.
Good and Plenty's are awesome.
Those are good and disgusting.
No, those are the best. Hey, our guest today, David James of the Peyton Heart Project. And I feel like we need to say something about this because I think it's going to be a delicate one today.
Absolutely. This episode is about suicide. And if you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, it's crucial to seek immediate help from a mental health professional, counselor, or call emergency services. The Peyton Heart Project is a project that's bringing awareness to the issues of teen suicide and bullying, to get people to talk about these issues and to show people that their lives are worth living and that every life matters. I look forward to speaking to David. We met him last year. I think so.
At Founders Day.
I think we met him at Founders Day. And this is something that I think a lot of people have been touched by, whether in this community or throughout.
People.
Yes.
Way too many
and
people.
So we'll get him in here and have him discuss what the Peyton Heart Project is.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that because it is impacting more people in our community than it ever has for a number of different reasons. So he's going to fill us in on all that. Do you value your sleep? How important is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is sleep to you?
11.
Is it 11?
I love sleep.
Do you follow any of the Instagram stuff on sleep hacks?
On sleep hacks?
Like ways to sleep better?
Well, considering I slept like crap last night, probably not. But I mean, remember when you were a kid?
Because the zombie/aliens came.
True. But remember when you were a kid, you had, like, they would tell you to count sheep?
Do you ever do that?
I used to when I was a kid.
There's a better game than that.
Take 2 Benadryl?
No. Yeah, take 2 Benadryl and a scotch. You'll be able to sleep like a baby. No, you pick not a topic. You pick a category, like say countries, and you start out with A, and you go Argentina, Brazil, Costa Rica, Denmark, and and you just go through the whole alphabet.
What's an E country?
I don't know. I never get to E.
Egypt.
I usually sometimes if I do that, I'll get to E or F and I'm asleep. Because your brain, because it like, it like sidetracks your brain down. So you're focused on something. You're not thinking about all the other stuff going on in the day. That's what counting sheep is. You're focusing on just this image of sheep. But I've done it with car parts. I've done it with countries, capitals, motorcycles, car brands. You can come up with anything. It's a good way to fall asleep.
No, what I have to
There's your sleep hack.
is I have to, honestly, you want to know how I try, if I'm just totally exhausted, but if I'm not totally exhausted, I think of a dream starter and something I want to dream about. And so I go.
So when you fell asleep last night, you were thinking you needed to dream about zombie aliens?
No, I was dreaming about reorganizing the office.
Oh, okay.
That's why I had a hard time sleeping. And so I have to think of something, it's probably the same concept. I have to think of something very benign. And
it's the same.
Yeah. And so I go deep diving into like, okay, I got to move the chair. And then it's like, or it's a couch. And then
we are
it's like,
purging this week.
And then it's like, oh no, now I'm back into zombies.
So sleep hacks is trending in social media right now, believe it or not, because everybody wants to know how to sleep better and longer. Do you sleep with socks on?
Only if I'm cold, but no, I don't sleep with socks on.
There's a study in the Journal of Physiological Anthropology that found that if you sleep in socks, men who sleep in socks fall asleep 7.5 minutes faster, sleep through 32 minutes longer, and wake 7.5 times less during the night if you wear socks. That's a scientific fact.
I sleep with a noise machine, a fan by my bed, the fan above my bed. The
AC turned down to 62.
I don't let Todd, right now, I don't let him turn the heater on, and then one leg outside of the covers.
Well, yeah, everybody's got their own. What the heck was that? Something just dinged. Everybody's got their own thing that works, but there's actually science behind why you will sleep better with socks on. It changes something in your body. It circulates the blood a different way, and it allows you to sleep better. This is based on science. And if you do what you do and keep your room really cold, normally your feet will get cold. But if you have socks on them, there's something about this sort of caveman type experience where you're in a cave, but you're warm and toasty. That makes you sleep better.
Naked toes.
Naked toe. No,
I can't. Your toes can't blink, and I don't like
blink.
Yeah, my toes can't blink, and I don't like the compression or the elastic. Steve, you don't wear a bra all day.
No, I don't wear a bra. Damn, I hope that never happens.
Yeah,
man boobs.
Yeah, man boobs. But no, I want nothing tight. Nothing. Just
so. I've been testing it for a week because I read this article a week ago, and I've been wearing dress socks, which are less restrictive than sports socks. And one night I wore sports socks and I did not sleep as well. So dress socks, I have slept better this entire week except for that one night wearing my dress socks.
You have fancy dreams?
Yeah, there's nothing sexy about it. Holly will tell you, I walk around in my skivvies and my blue dress socks.
You're just a ball of sex appeal there.
That's right. But it's an actual, Dr. Bobby was talking about it a couple weeks ago. Sleep is one of the most important things for living a long, healthy, happy life. And it actually has been helping me. I don't think I'm going to go back to sleeping naked with no socks on.
Please. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants naked Steve with socks on, with dress socks on. Steve, do you like living in Dripping Springs?
I love living in Dripping Springs.
Do you think people like visiting Dripping Springs?
Yeah.
I think so too, but CNN just named the Texas Hill Country one of the best places to visit in the world.
CNN?
CNN.
What's that?
It's I'm not going to say it.
I think it used to be a news network,
It's a news network, but all over the world. And there were 23 other destinations, but we were on the same list with Greece, Morocco, Panama,
the Hill Country,
and Greenland. Yeah, highlighting places that are still largely undiscovered or alluring in the off season or frequently overlooked. Central Texas area is one of only 3 places in the U.S. that were featured. The other 2 were Northwest Michigan, which it goes back to alluring or undiscovered, and the Florida Freshwater Springs. The Texas Hill Country, they say what brings people here are the springs, the trails, the wineries, the dance halls.
That's funny that they say the Springs. Whoever comes here and visits the Springs, nobody.
Well, this was Texas Hill Country
Oh,
overall.
in general, yeah.
And so they mentioned Krause Springs as one of them.
That is actually a beautiful place. And it's closed now, by the way. You can't camp there. I think they open again in February.
Oh, really? Well, the other place that they mentioned was Bluebonnet Cafe, which is our family's favorite, one of our favorite places. Yeah, in Marble Falls. So it kind of took a big...
They have a pie machine there that has like 100 pies in it that rotates around, don't they?
Yeah. It's delicious. And then also they mentioned the Mallet and Michelle podcast. So...
Oh, of course they do. Yes. Right next to Greenland and Greece.
Yes. And Morocco.
Yeah. I got a couple of quick ones here. Slice Street Pizza is open right here in the center where our podcast is located.
I went over there and so we did a chamber opening yesterday with that, and I missed the pizza, the free pizza he was giving out. So I went in there and he goes, "Oh, you're back." And I said, "Oh, I didn't get a piece of pizza." And he goes, "Oh, let me make you a piece."
Remember his name? I can't remember his name. I met him yesterday. Nice guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the pizza guy. And I said, he goes, "What do you want?" I said, "I don't care. Dealer's choice." He goes, "You know what? I want you to try just my plain cheese pizza right now because I want you to just really see what the flavors of the sauce is." And it was so good. So, yeah, when you see Michelle about 15 pounds heavier, it's because I'm going over and having pizza.
Yeah.
On Wednesdays, not Tuesdays, Bill. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. New York and Detroit-style pizza, neither one of which I know about, but sounds good. I don't eat pizza. I actually love pizza, though, but pizza hates me.
I told you, you got to have pizza with, what is it that my cousin eats on it? It's not goat's cheese, sheep cheese.
Yeah. I actually tried a little cheese over the Christmas holiday, and it just reminded me that cheese hates me.
Well, I love cheese. Cheese is my best friend.
Cheese is Michelle's friend. I have a story out of Austin, and I'm actually pretty excited about this. Austin's first All Abilities Park takes shape. Austin's first all-access park will be located at a currently empty plot at Onion Creek Metropolitan Park in Southeast Austin.
Oh, that's amazing.
Austin will soon welcome its first All Abilities Playground for children with disabilities and special needs. Leaders at Austin's Park Foundation and Austin's Parks and Recreation announced on December 14th. So that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be a thoughtfully designed, inclusive playground that helps children of all abilities grow physically, mentally, socially, and emotionally, said Kimberly McNeely of the Austin Parks and Rec
Dripping
Department.
Springs needs to do something like that.
I agree.
I think we have a large population here of special needs kids, and I think they're drawn here because of our school system and how well our life skills is. And you know what? Dripping Springs needs to do something.
And this is for every kid. Kids that don't have disabilities can go play there too, but a kid in a wheelchair or maybe that has some emotional disability could still go there and have a good time. I agree. I think it'd be a great thing.
That's a feel-good story. I like that story.
The Austin Parks Foundation will hold a public meeting on January 18th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. to gather community input on the park. So and they're going to have a somebody with ASL, American Sign Language, and Spanish interpretation there. So everybody's welcome.
So are they starting to build it, or are they just building funds?
I think right now they're building funds, and they're going to do it. They're now just trying to figure out what it's going to look like. So.
You know, that was one thing that I noticed when we visited, when we visited Europe, is that how very ability challenged friendly Europe is. Just everywhere. It is
challenging, or it's not challenging?
Very challenging. We have friends of ours, Scotty, who's on our podcast. He does our why am I blinking? What is it called?
The intro, the outro.
The intro, and the outro.
Heavy voice, that deep voice.
And so Scotty sometimes has to use a wheel around walker.
Which you never give him crap about.
Every single day. And it is difficult. Like when we were in D.C. and we discovered D.C. was a little bit challenging. Also,
really?
We stayed at a we first tried to stay at a historic hotel, and he could not get up the elevator in his wheelchair. And so we had to cancel our reservation and go somewhere else. But just the streets weren't designed for it. But yeah, Europe isn't very friendly.
Well, a lot of that is because
It's old.
It's old. Yeah, they didn't think about those things 500 years ago.
Yeah, I get it.
1,000
I mean,
years ago.
I'm not saying pave over the cobblestone, but it would be nice if they had like ramps or even like alternative entrances to some of the museums and things like that.
Yeah.
But
well, that's going to be a good addition to Austin. I hope that it breaks ground sooner than later.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I am very excited to get David in here, and
I got 2 more stories.
Well,
I was pointing at you because it was your turn, but you don't have anything.
No, I don't have anything. I told you I had one story. Oh. Did you see the thing that you did yesterday where you said, "What do you have?" I was drawing a total blank.
You had nothing.
I have.
I got 2 pretty good ones. This is piggybacking on episode 102 with Lisa Sullivan from the city talking about the eclipse. GreatAmericanEclipse.com just announced that there are 12 million people in Texas that are living in the path of this eclipse, not the path of totality. They're expecting 1 million people to travel into central Texas to see this eclipse. What is it, April? Is it 14th?
April 8th.
April 8th?
I think. Yeah.
So Lisa was saying that we're expecting a lot of people. They're actually saying there might be more people than we're expecting. So I'm hoping that our listeners are not underestimating how busy Dripping Springs and the Hill Country is going to be during this eclipse.
Yeah. I'm. We're going to try to do a little something with Pigpen out front. We need to order our glasses. That reminds me. Ooh.
Put it on the list.
I know.
Jeez, we came in this week. Our list is like, and we're going 1 million different miles and all at once. But that's great stuff. I got one more story. This is from the Austin Monitor, which is an online news source that you can subscribe to. Weather observers at Austin Airport have no windows and no internet access. The people that are monitoring the weather at the Austin airport. So when you fly out, where you go in New York at the end of this month, just remember that the people that are monitoring the weather, what they have to do is walk down 2 flights of stairs and open a door to see what the weather's like.
What, they ran out of windows or something?
I don't understand this. Apparently, this is the people that work there that monitor the weather are governed by the FAA, and the FAA thinks it's okay that these people don't have internet access in the building to check the weather.
Government as your finest.
That's like asking a blind person, does my belt match my shoes? It's like, how are they going to know? I don't know how other than just opening up the door, seeing what the weather is.
Do you stick like my grandfather used to do? He'd lick his finger and stick it up in the air.
It's gonna ring. Yeah.
I am a little, that is a little concerning because did you hear about the Alaskan Airlines flight
where the door blew out?
The hidden door that blew out. And there were I think 3 or 4 parents that had babies sitting on their laps.
Yeah.
And
luckily, that plane was at a lot lower altitude when it happened, because if it had been at 32 or 35,000 feet, that whole scenario would have been much different. Scary.
Can you imagine just sitting there minding your business?
And there were people sitting right where that window went out, where that door went out. I mean, they're like 1.5 feet away from it, sitting there.
Somebody found somebody's cell phone flew out, and they found it on the ground down. That's bizarre.
It is crazy.
Yeah. So
apparently all those airplanes are grounded now. They're checking to make sure that those it's actually a doorway that can be used, but they put sort of a plug in it so that it can't be used anymore. And I was reading a story on it this morning. The door had 4 bolts that are supposed to partially hold it in place, and they were all missing. All the bolts were gone.
Well, I think the next time I get on an airplane, I'm going to have a double Bloody Mary, please.
And maybe you see that the window aisle, and you go, "Ooh, there's more space." Maybe that's not such a great idea.
Nope.
Yeah, I think I'll sit a couple of seats behind that, but. Well, let's take a little break and get David James in here from the Peyton Heart Project. I know this is going to be an emotional one, but we're looking forward to hearing what he has to say and learning more about how we can prevent suicide in teens and anybody else. So let's take a little break. We'll be right back. Proudly sponsored by...
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit CapitalFarmCredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallet Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at malletintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome back. We are here with David James. He is the co-founder, advocate, and speaker of the Peyton Heart Project. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So the Peyton Heart Project is in memory of your son, Peyton,
Yes.
who unfortunately lost his life to suicide when he was 13 years old back in 2014.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Peyton.
He was an incredible kid. He was born 2.5 months early, weighed 2 pounds, 4 ounces.
Oh my gosh.
And spent the first month and a half of his life in the NICU at St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston. And surprisingly and amazingly, he was able to come home. Just all he had to do was gain weight. He had a couple of small scares while he was there, but for the most part, he was very healthy. In fact, he had a reputation in the NICU as being the loudest burper.
Oh, like Steve.
Yeah, exactly. I won't give you an example. And then what was his childhood like?
It was basically normal. He was usually the smallest one. He was behind on the growth charts because of his, prematurity. Mm-hmm. And, he started school. He was, very bright young man, loved to learn, loved to read, did whatever he could. He liked to entertain.
Yeah. When
he was 4, his mother, Jackie, and I split up, and, I think that was hard on him.
Yeah.
Like it would be for any kid. I mean, but he seemed to persevere. He was, just a very determined young man. He wanted to be a YouTube star.
Oh. He was ahead of his time, wasn't he? He
was. When he actually did have a YouTube channel, and it has a couple of videos on it, and it's just him playing video games and playing with his dog.
That's
so
great.
They moved. You were living in Woodland at the time? Woodlands?
My wife, I remarried, and my wife Lisa and I, along with my daughter Emily and stepson Ian, were living in the Woodlands, and Peyton and his mom were living in, close by, but I guess after 4th grade, he and his mom moved to the Austin area. Mm-hmm. And, it was difficult, just kind of doing the back and forth, we would meet in Carmine and do the swap every other weekend. And, we did the best we could to have a normal family life, just like anybody else. You tried, you do what you can for your kids, and that's what your life revolves around, is making sure, trying to make sure they're happy and healthy and, well-adjusted, raised right, and everything else.
Did he talk to you about like any trouble that he was having in school and bullying and whatnot, or were these things that you found out after?
No, he was very open. He, because of his size, he was picked on quite a bit, just for being a little one. He had a very quick temper too, and kids realized that they could, poke the bear,
push his buttons,
buttons and get him to go off. But he was not one to back down. And when they moved to Round Rock, when he was in the 5th grade, he had a kid that for some reason, that kid made it his life's mission to make Peyton miserable, and we had to threaten the district with legal action to get him to do anything.
So this wasn't like social media bullying. This was actual, like,
this was bullying,
like the old style bullying, like picking on him, like punching him in the arm and getting him riled up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It was the face to face, not backing, and he wasn't, like I said, wasn't one to back down. He actually had an episode in the 7th grade where he, 2 girls had taken the watch that his grandfather had given him before he passed away and hid it. Oh. And he was angry and frustrated and went outside and kicked a pole and hurt his foot. It was just, they did things like that. He would take it off because, during class, take it off, put it on the desk or whatever. And I guess he got up or something. He got very frustrated and, he didn't feel like the teacher did enough to help him.
They knew that they could get a rise out of him, so they continued to pick on him. And so what kind of eventually led to the end of his life,
so that,
where he was?
Like that event you were talking about in 7th grade, that was shortly before he committed suicide, right?
Yes, and just for correction's sake, we don't, in the community of survivors, we don't use the word committed suicide. We don't use that term. Okay. Because you don't commit cancer, you don't commit a heart attack.
Okay. So what's
that's a great,
what is the? It's
either, died by suicide or, how did he die? Well, he lost his life to suicide.
That is such a great education that you just gave both of us, because having my brother committed suicide, died by suicide, and it's not something I've ever thought about not using that terminology.
Yeah, it's even in the beginning when I started, but I've been with some groups that we're advocating for change, and trying to take away the stigma of losing someone to suicide, and you commit crimes, you commit murder, you commit forgery, you commit whatever. And we're trying to take away that negative connotation, because when someone takes their life, it's not a crime. Yes, there are countries in the world where it is. Believe it or not, there are. And there have been times where, in the not too distant past, it was considered a crime in parts of this country, but no longer. And it's
you mean that someone, if they attempted suicide,
could be arrested.
Then they could be arrested?
Yeah,
interesting.
I didn't know that. What? So as he died by suicide at age 13 in 2014. I hate to bring it up, but what was that experience like for you? How did you cope with that? And what lessons did you learn along the way that would help somebody else maybe dealing with the same thing?
I can still remember the day. It was October 8th of 2014. At the time, I was working as an English teacher and swim coach at College Park High School in the Woodlands. And my day had begun at 5 a.m. I go to the school, I get the bus, I go over to the natatorium, we run practice, go back, take the kids back to the school, go through an entire day of teaching, then take a different group back in the afternoon for another practice, and I have to take the bus back to the school, and then I have to make sure everything's ready to go in my class the next day. And by the time I finished up, it was about 5:30 in the evening, and it was just pouring down rain. And I walked out to the coach's parking lot, and my truck was the only one in there. All the other coaches had gone. It was, even the football coaches had gone. It was that bad. And I finally decided I'm going to run to my truck, and that's not a pretty sight to begin with. But I, clicking the button, I get to the truck, I throw everything in, I jump in, I'm just sitting there panting, and my phone rings. And I look at it, and it's Peyton's mom. And I'm thinking, what does she need? And she goes, "David, you need to talk to this officer." That's all she said. And sorry.
It's okay.
A guy comes on. He says he's with the Georgetown, Texas Police Department, and that Peyton James has hung himself. And, I'm just shocked. And I'm not just, Claire, how is he? How is he? And he hands the phone off to, I believe it was a nurse. I'm not really sure. It's kind of a fog. But she said, when they got to him, he wasn't breathing. His heart had stopped. They got his heart started. They had to tube him in order to get him breathing. They got him to Seton Medical Center in Round Rock. And that's where he was. And we needed to get there because time was of the essence. And, they hung up, and I just sat there, and all of a sudden some scream came out of me that I don't think I'd ever produced
primal,
before.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine.
It's just guttural. And I'm screaming and yelling. I'm pounding on the steering wheel. I'm punching the roof of the truck, and, tears streaming down my face, snot running out my nose. I didn't care, and I finally was able to calm down enough to call my wife. And I was lucky that day. Normally she would work in the Galleria, which is, 40 miles away and 3 hours by traffic in the Houston area. But she was working from home that day. And she was able to come get me. I was, the school was only 5 miles from our house.
And you were no shape to drive.
I couldn't have driven. So while I'm waiting for her, I'm just begging God, if you want to take a life, I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
Take me. I don't, let him live. But she came and got me. We had to go pick up my daughter at daycare. Then we had to come, we're trying to figure out how are we going to get to Austin. It's pouring down rain, terrible weather. And, we're just throwing clothes in a bag. And it's like, what do you take? How long are we going to be gone? So
you're not thinking clearly at that point. You're just almost on autopilot, just trying to figure things out. Wow.
And we also had to find someone to take care of watch my stepson, because he was in 7th grade. And so he was able to stay with some friends, and we got on the road, and about halfway to Austin, we got the call that he was being life flighted, or star flighted, whatever the helicopter one in this area is, to Dell Children's. So once we got there, it's late, it's been raining, it's dark outside. We get to the hospital, and we knew he was in the PICU, the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. And, hospitals are a maze. And you weave your way through, and we finally find it, and you get to the door, and of course, you have to have permission to enter. So we call, and we get in there, and he's all the way down at the end of the hallway. And you go in, and
the longest hallway walk ever.
And they, here's my son, who was a bundle of energy constantly, ADHD, just full of energy, full of creativity, constantly, talking, making people laugh. And he's laying there hooked up to all, manner of machines. They're monitoring heart rate, brain waves, everything. And, his body is spasming.
Jeez.
And it's just surreal. You just want to take them and hold them. And
they probably didn't want you to even do that at that point, did they?
It's, they treat them like, that's glass there. You've got to be very careful with them, because they're not, they're still assessing his injuries. Sure. And then the doctor took my wife and I into a separate room and sat us down and started talking about everything that happened to him and the injuries that he sustained and, the possibilities. And then they said the worst thing is if he recovers.
Oh, my gosh.
Not when, but if. And that just...
That's like a punch in the gut 10 times 10.
That was a, total kick. And they said the next 72 hours would be critical. We held vigil by his bedside for, next couple of days, but I guess that Friday they came in, and every hour they would run, the tests on him, make sure. And I still remember the nurse. His name was Earl. Great guy. He came in and started doing the tests, and then he walked out without telling us anything. And that's, setting off alarm bells. And he brings in the resident, who then brings, and they bring in the doctor, and they do the doctor huddle. And they're like, okay, he's not responding to the stimulus that, as he had been. So they had to do a CAT scan, but they had, it takes forever because you have all the machines he's hooked up to, and they took him down, and then they came back, and how is he? It's like, we need to talk to you. And they took us to these, a big screen, and on one side they had the CAT scan that they had done of him when he came in, and then the one they had just done, and you could see the difference.
So the brain activity had diminished.
Brain was dying. And then it was just, it wasn't if he's going to die, but when he's going to die.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So another 36 hours later, they basically, as the brain dies, goes all the way down to the stem where it controls the most primitive functions of breathing and heartbeat, all the involuntary muscle actions. And at 12:03 a.m. on October 13th, he was declared brain dead.
Oh, my God.
So, that we went back to the Ronald McDonald House where we were staying and just spent the night. And next day we had to go make funeral arrangements.
That's not the normal course of life. That's not how life's supposed to go. You're not supposed to bury your kids like that. I can't even imagine. I almost hate to bring this up, but what was the last conversation you had with him? Do you think about that?
I do. It was the Tuesday, he hanged himself on Wednesday. On that Tuesday, I called him because the swim team was having a kind of a bonding activity on that. It was going to be that weekend. He was supposed to be with me. And we were going to do this like Hunger Games thing where you shoot arrows with big foam on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I called him and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Are you excited? He's like, yeah, okay. 'Cause I knew he'd read all the books, everything else. So I figured he'd be excited. And then the next day, everything changed.
Do you know what the catalyst was that set Peyton off in that chain of events?
That morning, he had started at a new school. He and his mom had moved from Round Rock to Georgetown. And he had started a new school, really didn't know anyone. And he was in the cafeteria before school reading a book. And a kid came up to him and told him that reading was stupid and therefore he was stupid. And he didn't know this kid from Adam. And, Peyton, like I said, was never one to back down and, reported the kid to the AP. And, of course, nothing was really done. And I think he just felt completely let down. And, for anybody that's battling mental health issues, because Peyton had been diagnosed with, depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. He was in counseling. He was, they were giving him medication, trying to adjust that and everything. And he was just that impulsive action.
Yeah.
And just in that brief moment, his mind...
His impulse got in the way of his intent.
Well, so that's one of the, we always, in suicide prevention, you always talk about watching for these signs. Doesn't sound to me like there was any signs. There was nothing that well, maybe now looking back, but at the time you didn't think, oh my gosh, I got to watch him. He might
he had, when he was younger, he said, oh, I should just kill myself. Mm-hmm. And as a parent, you think, he always say that when he was getting in trouble. So right there, you think it's just deflection or something like that. But he actually made that comment, and his mother called him on it, took him to the emergency room. And, like I said, he started in counseling. We were working on it. But, what I've discovered over the years is that when someone is battling mental health issues, their mind is not working the way it normally would. And in his mind, the world would have been better off without him. They don't understand. And that's just the way it works. There are so many people who think, the world would be better off without me. I'm a burden. I'm just getting in everybody's way. And, for some people, that's just how they see it. It's
compounded with, being a teenage boy, mm-hmm. Just all of those puberty feelings and just mean people. I mean, there's just going to be mean people everywhere, right? And part of the Peyton Heart Project is you talking about addressing bullying. And this one kid that came up to him and said that about his book, I'm sure it's been 9 years, right? 9 years.
9 years.
The impact that a child himself had to another child, that wasn't his end game. That wasn't his intent for saying that. But what would you say to those kids that had bullied Peyton, that had just compounded and just stacked on top of each other and stacked on top of each other?
I think they, at first my reaction, I wanted to go to the school and drag the kid out of the classroom.
Yeah.
But thinking back on it, my whole goal is that kid's going to need some help.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. But, to say that to the kid in the morning, and then that afternoon he goes home and hangs himself, that's got to affect that kid too. And I'm hoping that, obviously the school couldn't tell us who it was. And, the whole thing is we just, hope and pray that kid got the help he needed.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like at around about 2014 is when schools started taking this stuff a lot more seriously, which maybe there is a connection, maybe there's not, but it also kind of coincides with the time when social media started becoming such a huge presence in everybody's life. And I know that's a big part of bullying.
Well, in August of 2014, Robin Williams took his life. And I think that really brought suicide into the limelight, or the spotlight, however you want to say it. Not necessarily as a good thing, but all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, if somebody is happy and jovial and full of life as Robin Williams, can take their life, then something has to be done here. And unfortunately, a lot of times it takes high-profile suicides to get anybody to do anything. And
that's a double-edged sword. It's high profile, so it raises awareness, but it also maybe makes somebody that's struggling go, well, look, even this guy's, who had everything, took that choice. So maybe it's easy for me to do too. And so it's double edged. I'm glad it's raising awareness, but for me thinking, man, Robin Williams he's got the world in his palm, and he still was not happy. He still struggled.
You touched on something that, it's not necessarily the bully or the behavior of somebody else, right? It's bigger than that. And it's the mental health aspect of it. It's how the person that chose their own end of life, how they were coping, their coping mechanisms, their coping strategies. And I think that I'm hoping that right now, especially with what's going on in this country right now, I'm hoping that we take a closer look at mental health in younger children, young kids, because it's just a scary world out there in general.
It really is. I mean, one of the things I've learned is that, with suicide, it's when somebody takes their own life, it's not necessarily that they want to die. They want the pain that they're in to end. And, psychological pain can be very much akin to physical pain. And I know Steve's probably old enough to remember Joe Theismann, Monday Night Football back in mid-'80s when he broke his leg, and the world saw it. Yeah. And they saw it on, slow motion instant replay. Yeah. And they say that's one of the most painful injuries that somebody can incur. And you just think about the incredible pain, physical pain that he was in. Now you manifest that into psychological pain. And, without the coping skills necessary and thinking, your mind is just telling you that, you're a burden, you're a waste, you're never going to amount to anything. Nobody loves you.
I just want that to stop.
Exactly.
And that answer, which is the worst answer, but that's the one that pops in their head. This will make it stop.
Exactly. I mean, I actually had the privilege, I met Kevin Hines, and Tate probably has heard of him. Mm-hmm. He is one of the 1% of the people that have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and lived.
Oh my gosh.
They just put up just last week, they finished the netting all around the Golden Gate Bridge because of the suicide jumpers. Yeah,
I actually had the privilege of meeting him, and when he speaks, he talks about his story, and he went there with the intention of, killing himself when he was 19 years old. And he told himself if one person asks him what's wrong, he won't jump, and nobody did. And he said, he's crying, he's emotional, and this is a tourist spot. There's not like it's just
around. Yeah.
And he said a lady came up to him, obviously, by her accent and everything, foreign, and asked, excuse me, sir. And he said, yes. And, will you take my picture? Oh. And he took the picture, handed the camera back. She said, thank you, and walked away. And at that point, he thought nobody in the world cared. So he put his hands on the railing, and he jumped. And he said as soon as he cleared the railing, he was like, I don't want to die. Oh. Everything that led up to that point, and as soon as he had done it, that moment of clarity comes. And I think that's what a lot of people feel is everything builds to that point, and then when they get to that point, they don't really want to die. They just want that pain to end. They don't want to go on living like they are.
Yeah.
So
how do you think being a survivor of this tragedy, how have you coped? What are you doing to help?
What did you learn about yourself along the way here that would help other people that might find themselves in the same situation?
It's not going to go away by staying silent. You've got to, I take an active role. That's kind of what, I was a teacher for 30 years. And I know that education is the key to solving this. And, like so many other people, when I didn't know the answer, I went to Google and I typed in causes of suicide, and I just started reading and reading and reading, trying to get a handle on it. And, I knew that things had to be done. And I started out, I guess, in spring of 2015. I actually went to the Capitol with, another person. We lobbied for the passage of the Jason Flatt Act in memory of Jonathan Childers. Jonathan was a young man in Fairfield, Texas, who took his life, and his father was a coach at Fairfield High School, and he contacted me and said, hey, why don't you come to the Capitol with me? We're going to go visit these people. And the law was passed that required all school personnel who come into contact with students have to go through yearly suicide awareness training. Unfortunately, just like any law that, it lost its teeth going along. So
that's what happens.
It was up to each district as to how they did it. And the district I was in at the time took or at least the school I was at, took a very casual approach. We had a student.
Even having a teacher who has lost a child.
Exactly. The previous year, we had lost a student to suicide at that school. And, we came back from Christmas break, and, our lead counselor got up there and said, okay, reading from the pamphlet, this is what we need to do, be aware of. Okay, go. And she came into the faculty meeting, and I'm hyped. I'm thinking this is, we're going to learn something. And she goes, I know we just did this last year, but now state law says we have to do it again.
Geez.
Did you get up and want to just punch her in the
I was starting to, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. I always sat with the other coaches, and somebody I don't know who it was. I have an idea, but
how insensitive.
They put their hand on my shoulder and basically held me down.
Yeah.
And, I realized that I'm not going to say anything, but I went back to my classroom and I was about to start throwing things. It was that frustrating.
Yeah.
That they took such a cavalier attitude toward it.
I did a little bit of research before you came in, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for kids aged 10 to 14 and 20 to 34, followed only accidents is number one. I don't understand why there isn't more done about education. What are the organizations that you work with? What besides I know the education is the most important. How are they impacting people learning about how to deal with these things?
And why are so many people sticking their head in the sand and thinking, not us?
Yeah,
it doesn't happen to us.
You mentioned stigma, talking about suicide. Why is all that like that?
Well, for the longest time, people, obviously there have been great strides made since Peyton's death in, suicide awareness, mental health awareness. You think about Simone Biles and her trials at the 21 Olympics.
Yeah.
Where people are starting to realize that, there are people out there that, even if it's just for a period of time, we can struggle. And, it's just raising that awareness. For the longest time, anybody that, they were crazy. That was the term you used. If you took medication, you were crazy. Whether it was Prozac or whatever, there was that stigma
Or
involved.
if you said, hey, I need a break, people would go, don't be a wuss.
Yeah, exactly.
Last night I was watching the national championship, and Michigan has a psychologist, on staff. And I saw several times the quarterback of Michigan take little mental health breaks.
Really?
And he'd go check in with him. And before the game, he takes his shoes off. He grounds in the end zone. He checks in with him again. He has this little mantra that he says. I think that maybe there is some more awareness for.
Well, I want to know what are the things that these groups are recognizing that as the cause, and what are they recommending that we do as a society to address this?
A lot of the work I do is through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP.
Yeah.
And every year they have, throughout the country, they have the Out of the Darkness walks.
Right.
And that's kind of the, bring everything out of the darkness into the light. For the longest time, mental health issues, it was called mental illness, and illness, it was that closeted thing. We didn't talk about it. And, being from an area like the Woodlands where everything is so image conscious, parents would not want to admit that there was a problem with their child.
I could see that. I could see that even here in Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is they, not my child. Oh, it's just a stage. They're just acting out. Yet Montgomery County, where the Woodlands is centered, has one of the highest suicide rates in the state of Texas.
Oh, wow.
And, it's just getting people to recognize that it is a problem and that it can be prevented.
How? How can it be prevented?
A lot of times it has to come out in the open. You have to have that person that's fighting. They have to be able to talk about it. They have to be able to receive help. If your child had cancer, would you just tell them, suck it up?
No.
You would take them to MD Anderson or wherever?
I think that's different, though, because a cancer diagnosis is this definitive thing that happens. And when your child's struggling, there isn't a test to go into the doctor where the doctor goes, oh, they've got depression and they might be suicidal.
Actually, a lot of doctors now, when you go in, they do the mental health check on you. How are you feeling? And, trying to diagnose it. The problem is it's just trying to find the help.
Right.
Trying to find qualified counselors and doctors and specialists. Or
even the cocktail of medication that will work for certain people.
That's always my worry, is that the doctors ask those questions because they want to put the kids on medication, which might help in some certain instances, but it's not always the answer.
No, I mean, there is no guaranteed cure. What works for one person may not work for another, and I think that's what we dealt with Peyton was trying to find that right balance of medication and counseling and everything else. I don't think that there is that one guaranteed cure. You have to be able to take a lot of things into consideration. And just like any other diagnosis and treatment, sometimes it takes time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people are not necessarily patient with it. They want immediate results. And when they don't get what they want, they're going to move on to the next thing instead of just, well, this doctor didn't give us what we needed, so we're going to go to the next one.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of giving that person time to, work through it and find that balance.
Well, I want to know, because you worked in the Woodland School District, you were a teacher, and then you ended up here in Dripping Springs. So now you have a 12-year-old that is here in the Dripping Springs School District, almost the same exact
11, right?
11.
She'll be
almost
12 in a month.
Okay.
Almost the same age that her brother was. And so what are you seeing in Dripping Springs, or are you, Dripping Springs ISD, that's different from how Georgetown approached what was going on with him 9 years ago?
One of the things they do is, she's a sixth grader at Drip Middle, mm-hmm. and they have the, now I forget what it's called, but they have a class at Huddle.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Every sixth grader has to go through Huddle, and that's one of the things that they deal with is they actually talk about mental health issues. And I think that's great. It's something that needs to be talked about. It's not going to go away by pretending it doesn't exist.
I think that's great. Rather than ignoring it until it becomes a bomb that goes off, addressing it up front and letting kids know that there's help, because they don't know. They're not the experts on this.
But because I'm a parent, right? I'm a parent, and I'm a sister, and I'm a wife, and when I look at this sweet kiddo who is going through this, I want to point a finger at somebody.
Yeah.
And I think as a parent, you want to point your finger and you want to say, okay, it was this person that did this at this time, but it was basically a series of events is what I'm hearing, is what
Dave,
you're telling me.
I'll go out on a limb and say it wasn't any one person or event. It was a societal thing at the time. We were just ignoring these kids, and we're still doing it to some extent today, ignoring these kids that were struggling because we didn't know how to deal with it. And so these things explode like this.
Well, I look at like what's going on right now in Dripping Springs, and I pay attention. I have, even though my kids are all graduated, I pay attention to what my mama friends are saying, that, the bullying is still there. They're still getting harassed by a coach I think it's worse than that. And that's actually kind of segue into one of my questions. I think social media is one of the worst things for bullying now that's ever happened. Are like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, do they have a stance on that?
As far as social media goes, in fact, this morning I was reading an article that there are good and bad things to it, just like anything. A lot of it is, that FOMO, that fear of missing out, where people feel so isolated and they see others living the quote unquote perfect life, even though
as adults we know doesn't exist.
Exactly.
But a 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old kid doesn't know that.
It doesn't exist. And, I've had the privilege of meeting Maureen Moloch, who is the driving force behind David's Law. And that's the cyberbullying laws here in Texas. She lost her son, David, in, I want to say 2015, 2016. He was cyberbullied. And, she was another one that, she's not going to let that sit. And she went and, same thing, lobbied and got that law passed where you can get injunctive relief against a bully. If it's, the bully is under 18, it can be against his parents.
Oh, wow.
And, it's just one of those things. It's not just cyberbullying, it's bullying in general. And these are things that need to be addressed. It's not just kids being kids. There is damage that can be done. And a lot of times people don't realize it. If I had $1 for every time I'd tell somebody to stop saying something, as a teacher, oh, he knows we're kidding. I got so sick of that because do they? Do they really?
No, they don't.
And you don't realize the damage that you can do. And kids don't realize it. And I think that's one of the big problems is they don't see the forest for the trees. They see it in that minute. I'm going to say something. I'm going to get a cheap laugh at this kid's expense without really knowing what this person is going through.
So what's the solution to that? Because, I had a daughter. She was, Kendall, you would look on the outside, you would say, okay, she's a varsity cheerleader. She's very outspoken.
Strong,
she's very
independent.
She's beautiful, blah, blah. And she was obsessively bullied by these particular group of boys. And I about rolled heads at this district, totally rolled heads. And so I felt like I was stuck. I was bringing the authorities in and they were following her to her work. And it was just so much of it where they took my beautiful, strong-willed daughter and they turned her into a puddle because it was a joke to them.
Are the schools taking it more seriously now, though?
I think they're forced to. I think, there's still going to be places where it's, old school thought, but a lot of them are really starting to take it more seriously. One of the big problems is, schools, just like communities, are very image conscious. And they don't want to be seen as that school where the kids are harassed and bullied and everything else. They want to paint that rosy picture and get people to move there and, have people support the school and the community come out. And I think they need to realize that, kids are going to do bad things.
But if you're a parent, what would your advice be to that parent who is starting to see their child struggle like that and their parent or their child's coming to them and saying, look, somebody's picking on me. However, even if they're 17, 18 years old.
I think there's a mindset change at the school district level because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I want to know is what is your advice to those parents? What are you going to say? Like if they feel like they're keep hitting a dead end, a stopgap, where do you suggest they go to?
David's Legacy. That's the foundation that Maureen Moloch set up where you can get legal advice. Mm. They actually have, pro bono lawyers, and they can walk you through, filing injunctive relief. Sometimes that's what it's going to take.
And this is against the school or the parents.
The parents
well, what I was going to say is, my kids were younger, and I was looking at a school district. The school district's like, we want to paint a rosy picture. I would be more attracted to a school district that said kids are struggling these days and we have all these programs set up so that kids thrive in the world that we live in. That's more attractive to me than, hey, we got a great football team. You know, and that's what I started to say. That's a mind shift at the school level, at the district level.
Sometimes it is just, you feel like it is hot air though, you know, and then to be able to feel like you have a resource to go to.
Sometimes it is hot air, but sometimes it's action. There are people that realize, people like you, Dave, that realize this is a big issue and we have to address this.
That was one of the, you know, I actually, after Peyton's death, I contacted the head of counseling in the district I was working for, and we sat down and I poured my heart out and I said, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to be able to go into the schools. I want to talk to the kids. I want, you know, and she's like, oh, that's such a great idea. We love that idea, but we're not going to do it because it might make some parents uncomfortable. And my whole response is, uncomfortable. Bury your child and tell me what uncomfortable is.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking.
What was Georgetown's response to Peyton's death?
I didn't really deal with it as much as his mother did. His mother was actually working in the district. She was a teacher as well. And I really don't want to say anything because, you know, I don't want to speak for her, but I know that there were some battles that went on. And sadly, the same weekend that Peyton passed away, another student at one of the Georgetown schools took their life.
Wow. And,
you know, I don't know if it's just not wanting to admit there's a problem or not knowing how to deal with it, not having the tools necessary.
I hope there's been some big changes.
I'm sure there have been. I mean, a lot of districts are, you know, hiring more mental health professionals, but, you know, with kids these days, it's just so overwhelming.
It sounds like to me, in dealing with Peyton's death, you definitely categorized your grief and your ex-wife's grief, but you moved from Woodland here to Dripping Springs. So what was the thing that kind of brought you out of the Woodlands here?
Well, one, I wanted to be out of the Woodlands.
Yeah.
And I wanted out of that. I went to UT. I love this area. And in, I guess, December of 19, when we had come from my wife's law firm, was having their annual Christmas party. They have an office in Wimberley and an office in Houston, and they alternate between locations. Well, it was going to be in Wimberley that year, and we came out here, and we were going to meet some friends at Family Business Beer Company. And so we left Family Business. We're heading down 12 to Wimberley, and I was like, we should move here. I mean, it was just one of those, you know, talk about impulsive. But, you know, and the partner that runs the Wimberley office had tried to get Lisa to move originally. And she couldn't because of her son and, you know, being closer to his father and everything. But he was about to graduate high school. And it's like, there's nothing holding us back. Let's go ahead and make the move. So we did.
How do you feel the community has embraced you guys here?
I think well, we moved during the pandemic, so it was
a little sketchy.
A little hard to embrace at that point.
But we love the area. We really do. And like I said, Dripping Springs City Life magazine has done an article that's coming out. Yeah.
It's
in the January.
Page 82.
Page 82, exactly.
The health and wellness articles. Yeah.
And the Dripping Springs Neighbors magazine is going to feature us next month as the nonprofit of the month.
Oh, nice.
Which magazine?
Dripping Springs Neighbors.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when we're talking about the Peyton Heart Project, I realized that we haven't even really mentioned what the Peyton Heart Project does, except in the monologue. And so this thing, before we came on, you talked about how you were talking about this on social media, and some women in the East Coast found out about this.
The idea was yours from the beginning.
No, actually, like I said, it was the idea. The original idea was from Jill Cuban and Sue Harris, who live up in New Jersey.
Okay.
After Peyton passed away, like I had mentioned, we had stayed at the Ronald McDonald House. And when you stay at the Ronald McDonald House, when you walk in, you know, there are parents that walk in, you know, their kid has been, you know, life flighted from wherever. They may walk in with nothing but the clothes on their back. And they hand you a little plastic bag with, you know, the hotel soap and toiletries and everything like that. And I thought that was incredible. So I started products for Peyton where I collected, you know, I asked people, hey, if you're going to a hotel, grab the soap, grab the shampoo, you know, grab that stuff. And I ended up with like 300 boxes of it.
Oh, geez.
And we took it.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And we donated that to the Ronald McDonald House of Houston. We donated it in Austin and San Antonio and Galveston. but it just wasn't sustainable. I didn't have any place to store it, and it just, I was working full time and coaching, and it just, it became something I kind of let slip. But I was still looking for some way to, keep Peyton's memory alive. And Jill had done a hat drive in Peyton's honor up north, where they collected hats and scarves and gloves for the homeless in New Jersey. And they had done a hat drive in Peyton's honor. And they later contacted me and said, hey, we've come up with this idea to, take these small handmade hearts and attach a positive message to it and then leave it where people can find it. And the whole idea being is somebody is struggling, they find that, there's that sign they've been looking for that someone cares.
The person on the Golden Gate Bridge that asked them to take their picture instead of just asking them what was going on.
Exactly. And we always say, if you find it, and you're struggling, there is your sign.
Oh, that's great.
If you're doing okay, someone that's going through something. Get it in their hands. Let them know that somebody cares. For so many, it's just they want to know that somebody gives a damn that they exist.
Yeah.
Where's some of the places that you've left these hearts?
This past summer, we took a family vacation to Seattle. So, I've left one, like on a window in the Space Needle. Outside the Museum of Popular Culture, they have a statue of Chris Cornell, who is, one of the members of Soundgarden who took his life a few years ago. I left one on his guitar, on the statue. They have been found, we've got pictures on our website of them at the Eiffel Tower, on the Great Wall of China.
Wow.
Just all over the world. They've been found in all 50 states and close to 70 countries. In fact, if you scroll back down there, you'll see the Great Wall of China one.
Oops.
I think that's the Great Wall of China.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Sorry.
Huh. 2017.
That's amazing.
So who makes the hearts?
We have volunteers that make them, people from throughout the country and throughout the world. Like I said, we've had people in everywhere from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, just all over. In fact, I just got a lady from Las Cruces, New Mexico just sent me a supply of them.
Those are some of the ones you brought us.
Those are some of the.
So our mission, Michelle, is to go out and put these in places where people will find them that are looking for a sign.
That's right.
David, you talked earlier about you Out of the Darkness walks. You were the keynote speaker there. It was put on by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Is the story that you told us today the story that you told as the keynote?
A lot of times, that's part of my recovery and part of my therapy is telling Peyton's story.
Yeah.
Because I'm hoping that somebody somewhere listening can learn from it. And for so many people that are, especially survivors, they need to know they're not alone. That's why these walks are so incredible, is because you go to them and there's, just other people there that you can share your story with. Right. And it's really just watching the healing, letting people talk about it. I always set up a table where I give away hearts, and people want to come over and they want to talk about the person they lost. And it's like, yes, tell me about them.
Yeah.
And, I've had people come over that lost a 10-year-old child, or, it was their spouse or it was their father, and, they want to be able to tell someone. They want to talk about it.
I want to ask you, there's so much goes around or talks about what Peyton's tragedy was, but what do you want people to know about Peyton or to remember about Peyton outside of what ultimately took his life? That,
he was just, for the longest time, he was just a normal kid. He wanted to be an entertainer. He wanted to make people laugh. That was his thing. Like I said, he started a YouTube channel because he wanted to entertain people. And, back in 2014, I think that was just getting underway. But that's who he was. He just, he was a born entertainer. Even when he was little, we'd go to the mall and he'd jump up on the, one of the fountains or something and start singing. At first he wanted to be on American Idol. And then as he got older, it just became, the YouTube or social media, something like that, where he could, share himself being silly. Mm-hmm. He was just a goofy kid, and that's what I loved about him.
I read something that you said that he's forever 13.
Yeah.
Wow. David, what should parents do if they suspect their child might be contemplating suicide? What are the warning signs, and what should they do?
Look for any changes in their daily routine. If they were, and especially if they're an extrovert and all of a sudden they start spending time alone, talk to them, ask them, what's going on, and say, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? I mean, you've got to be blunt. I just went through a ASSIST training, which is Applied Suicide Intervention training. And that's one of the things that you cannot, tiptoe around it. Be blunt, because like I said, most people who take their own lives don't want to die, but they don't know any other way. And, it's very difficult to come out and say, yes, I want to kill myself. So if you open that conversation and you allow them to, that can have such a world of difference on them, because they realize that you care. Right. When you're battling mental illness, you don't go through, you think that, nobody cares. Your whole mind is playing tricks on you.
Right. Well, and part of the healing and part of feeling better is sharing that burden with somebody else and realizing that person cares so much about you. Because like you said earlier on, they think that the world's not going to miss them. And you have to show them that a lot of people are going to miss them. That's, yeah.
Well, they talk about the ripple effect. And for every suicide, there's, at least over 100 people that are affected. Yes, you have the parents and the, brothers and sisters, the direct family. But then you have as it goes out, you have the people on the fringes, the friends, and then people that may have known them, and, teachers and things like that are affected. I guess it was my second year of teaching back in the early 90s. I was working at a high school in the Houston area, and we had a student take their life. And the administration came in the next day before school started, and they removed every trace of that student from the school.
Oh, geez.
They went and cleaned out his locker. They went to all his classrooms, took out anything that, may have, notebooks, pencil, whatever it was. And we were instructed that you do not talk to the kids about this. If they say they're having a problem, send them to the counselor.
Wow.
And that was an eye-opener for me, because the year before I'd been at another school and we lost a student, in an accident, and they came over the announcements and they talked about it. And,
so the school districts think that talking about it will make more kids do it.
That's
one of they're thinking, right?
That's one of the old beliefs.
But that child's life was just as valid as the child that passed away in an accident.
Exactly.
I mean,
well, and not burying it, like you said, Michelle, not burying their head in the sand is the most important thing you can do. And you just alluded to it. Ask them point blank, are you considering suicide? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of times they want to talk about it, but they don't know how.
Sure.
And, there was a belief at one time that if you, excuse me, that if you talk about suicide, you're going to put the idea in their head. It's already there.
Yeah.
And,
don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. They say for every suicide that's completed, that 35 people attempt suicide.
Jeez.
And on a year, an average, and that just goes up as far as people that, from attempting it to planning it to thinking about it. So there's a lot of people out there that it's in their mind.
Right. More kids are dying from suicide. I saw, I don't remember the percentages, but I saw them, and it was in the last 6 years, it's gone up 71% in kids.
It really has.
This is a national crisis, and we do need to talk about it.
It's not going to go away by not talking about it. It has to be brought into the forefront and talked about. In 2022, I think the number was 49,455 people in the United States took their lives. And those are just the ones that are documented. There's, depending on the area in which they were, single car accidents with no skid marks,
right.
Accidental overdoses, things like that can also,
that could be suicide, but they're not classified as
They're
suicide.
not classified.
That number could easily be double, really, honestly, maybe more. So.
You know, I've been listening to your story. I read a lot about your story and hearing about Peyton. I feel like Peyton would be very proud right now what his dad is doing and to honor his memory, and that we are very grateful that you're here in this community. And if just one parent right now has heard your story and maybe sees or hears those kind of signs in their own child, there's so many resources like what you were saying out there to be able to talk to, but they're not alone.
No, they're not.
You know, I think you're an invaluable member of this community to kind of bring this scary and yucky topic to the forefront.
Yeah, like I said, I'm talking about Peyton and helping people is part of my therapy. And it's ongoing, you know, it's not something you get over.
No, you lost a child. You lost a piece of you. And at the end of the night, it's your head that lays on your pillow.
Yeah.
And it's your
and
child.
If there's organizations out there that, you know, if you want me to come talk to a Boy Scout troop or a Girl Scout troop or your church group or, you know, your class or whatever, that's what I'm here for.
How do they reach out to you?
They can contact me through the Peyton Heart Project, through our website, thepeytonheartproject.org.
There's a lot of information on here and resources.
And Peyton's name is Peyton.
They can email me directly. It's I'll give you all my email address, and they can, you know, you can put it on the website.
Yeah.
On your
and you've got Facebook page, you've got Twitter, you have Instagram.
Actually, we don't have the Twitter anymore. We canceled that, but we have Facebook, we have Instagram. Like I said, I'll give, you know, Steve and Michelle my personal email address.
Yeah, we'll put it on
Absolutely.
the website.
Reach out to us. And David, thank you so much for spending your morning with us.
Oh, no problem.
This subject.
Yeah,
wow.
this till the day you die, this will be as an open wound till the day you die. And I'm glad that you opened up to us and shared this message because it's so important for us to talk about.
I said, I love this community and I want to be able to give back. I mean, we have been welcomed here. You know, we have not been, you know, made to feel like strangers. It's not some massive, you know, metropolitan area. It's a very small community. And some of the people here have been so warm and welcoming, and, you know, that, you know, people that I've shared Peyton's story with, they want to help, you know, and there's so many different ways you can. So,
well, I didn't
reach
even
out to David.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we didn't even touch on your diving career, your diving coach career, the fact that you were Parker McCullum's 9th grade football coach, what I was going to bring up, but
and junior English teacher.
And junior English teacher.
I'm sure all the girls would love that.
And yesterday I said, Michelle, who's Parker McCullum?
And yes, he's still alive.
Yeah. Oh, he's a listener.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, David, so much for coming in. I would say we enjoyed the time with you, but I can't necessarily say that, but it's been very eye-opening, and I want to thank you for what you're doing in the community.
I appreciate y'all letting me have a voice here in the community.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit. Your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
melliotstudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallet Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at malletintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.